What does it mean to live a resilient life? I'm Ryan Manion. I lost my brother to war and my mom to cancer, and I've learned a lot about myself along the way. Now, as the CEO of Travis Manion Foundation, I'm on a journey to explore what it means to be resilient against life's many challenges. Join me and some incredible guests as we ask ourselves the hard questions and define what it means to struggle well. Welcome back to another episode of the Resilient Life podcast. I'm here with Brielle Persun, Charlotte-based, I guess you would call it like Bookstagram creator, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay. And
I'm in Charleston, but very close.
Charleston based.
But close.
Yes. And Brielle and I were just talking, and we have a lot of friends in common. Used to be in the DC area. Tragically lost your husband less than a year ago. And with January with a 4-month-old child. And I think about all these things, like when you lose a loved one, when you lose someone tragically, and like being able to be here and talk to you today. This morning was like thinking about where was I in kind of my grief journey, like 6 months out, right?
Right.
Like, where was I? Would I have been able to be behind a camera talking to someone like you are? And the answer for me is no. So I want to thank you for being here with me today and sharing your story.
I really appreciate you having me on. And honestly, I've started to realize, like, talking about it, because obviously I think, and you probably know this, the direct like month afterwards, I almost didn't want to even talk about, I would like avoid conversations about my husband. Like when people wanted to talk about like memories, because I was just like, my brain was just like, I can't do this right now, because it's a spiral situation. So you just almost like, the disassociation is so real, like in the very beginning, just to kind of get through the day. But I feel like now that I'm getting further out with it, talking about it, I realize after even a conversation ends, I'm like, wow, I do feel a little better. So it's obviously a journey with all of this. So like, I do appreciate being able to come on and kind of talk to people. And I do think there's some things that like I've just learned that I do think other people would appreciate having kind of the tools and knowledge of.
Yeah. And, I get where, I remember like in the very beginning after losing my brother, it was like, if you said his name, which of course everybody's saying his name at that time, right? And it's just like, it would just bring me to like immediate tears, versus like I'm 18 years out from like my tragic loss, and nothing brings me more joy than talking about Travis and sharing who he was. And I'd like to, let's start by talking about your husband, and why don't you share with us the story if you're comfortable with that?
Yeah, for sure. So in January, he passed on January 10th. The night before, we were actually watching the Penn State Notre Dame football game. I went to Penn State. He was a big Penn State fan. Penn State lost, obviously. So it was like a very normal night. We had put our kid to bed. We were watching the game. The last honest memory I can remember is like us fighting over the sink in the bathroom, like brushing our teeth. And like, he was like cracking jokes and like trying to move me out of the way. And I don't remember what we were like cracking jokes about, but it was just, I remember laughing. I remember it just being normal. Yeah. So we went to bed, and we had the TV on, we were watching a show, and I fell asleep first within like 20 minutes of going to bed. And I woke up to my dog barking, and I was like, what's going on? And I turn over and my husband's not next to me. And then I'm like, this is just weird. So I walk down the stairs, and all of a sudden I hear banging on my front door. And I'm like, what is going on? It's 2:00 in the morning, because I looked at the time before I got out of bed, and it's EMS saying, hey, it's EMS, let us in. And I'm just like, what? And I'm screaming like, what, on the stairs. And I hear from my living room my husband going, Brielle, you need to open the door. I'm not okay. And I was like, what? And so I can't even see him at this point. I just hear his voice coming from the living room. And I open the door, and it's EMS like rushing into the living room. So the EMS get in there, turn all the lights on, and I walk in afterwards, and he is on the couch. And they ended up taking, I had to call my dad. Luckily, my parents live about a block from us because obviously we have a 4-month-old currently. He's sleeping upstairs. So I call my dad and he answers at 2 o'clock in the morning, thank goodness, and comes over and they start taking Tyler to the hospital. They're like, we were taking him to the ER right now. And I didn't get into it with him because I was waiting for my dad to really just to settle the baby. And the EMS was like, we're taking him here. It means useless for you to come. You're going to want to bring your own car, all of that. So I get down to the hospital and
do you have any idea at this point, like what is going on with him? Like,
I just knew his blood pressure was really low.
Okay.
And his temp was like very low, like really cold. And when I finally get to the ER, he's in there and he's still able to talk to me and he's in a lot of pain. He just keeps saying, I really can't, my legs are hurting. I can't really feel my feet. And they thought it was because of the blood pressure being really low, that there was just like, or whatever of that sort. So they had already taken him to get an MRI, and about 4 years prior to this, right before I met him, he had gotten pancreatitis and had to have his gallbladder taken out. And he was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. Now, he did have like, I forget what they're called, like pseudocysts on his pancreas. Basically, everything needed to be monitored. Because once you screw around with your pancreas, it really is, it's something that you need to just healthier lifestyle. There's so much to that once it starts to happen.
Yeah.
So they just figured it was blood pressure, but they did the MRI and they noticed his pancreas was a little inflamed. So they thought they were like, I do think he has like symptoms of like kind of acute pancreatitis, which you're more susceptible to once you have it, once all of that has gone on.
But that's also not a terribly uncommon thing for people to have pancreatitis.
No, I had friends and like, obviously a lot of it can be spurred on for too much drinking. Cause I had friends in college that had to go to the hospital for things like this. So it wasn't not uncommon, but I noticed a difference because I just was like, he's really complaining about his leg. Like it was just, I felt something being different.
Yeah.
And the ER doctor comes in and says, we're going to take him up to the ICU. You don't want to mess with the pancreas. This stuff, there's just a lot of inflammation. Like we want to, we can't handle, we don't want to handle this here. We want to take him up to like specialized people. So my husband turns to me and he was like, I don't want you to stay here. Like, please go home and see if your dad's okay with the baby. And obviously, like, once they get up there, they're going to have to take him for tests. They were like, you're not going to really be able to see him, at least for, like, by the time he gets his room settled in there, we can't get you in there until 9, like, really till the visitor. So I was like, okay. So I said goodbye to him. I kissed him goodbye. I said, I love you. And I left. I get home in about an hour. Once I shower and everything, and I'm about to like start to head back, the charge nurse calls me from the hospital. And I'm like, it's never good. Because normally like no news is better news.
Yeah.
So they call me and she's like, I just want to let you know before you get here how you're going to see him. And I was like, what? And they were like, well, he flatlined. He turned to me in the room and he said, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. And then he flatlined and he was down for 2 minutes. They said he did come back. He said, but he's on a breathing tube. We did have to sedate him. So obviously he's now got a breathing tube in and he's sedated.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. But they were like, but his vitals are getting better. His blood pressure's starting to even out. Like we just don't want you to freak out when you see him. So I was like, okay. So I get to back to the ER and I get to the ICU. And I always say this to people, when you go to the ICU and everything's okay, all the rooms are like dark. They're just kind of like hanging out in there. Okay. Well, there was one room where there were about 100 people filing out of it. All the lights were on and it was like right outside the charge nurse thing. And they were like guiding me towards that. One random lady who had let me in was like guiding me towards that room. And I was like, oh no. Yeah. Oh no. Like you just know, because that usually means there's something that they're like doing emergency stuff in there no matter what. So I walk in as they're literally putting in a central line in him. So that's obviously where they've got to be able to like pump the antibiotics or pump the medicine in like directly. So it's kind of like an open surgery happening like in the room. So I remember saying to the doctors, is my husband dead? And like, nobody's answering me. They're just kind of like staring. And I'm like, is my husband dead? And they were like, no, he's not dead. And then like a nurse comes and she's like, let me take you to the room, you know, the not fun one room that you have to sit in. And they were like, we have to put a central line in. He's, you know, he started to like his blood pressure started to tank again. There was just things. And you're gonna have to wait here. And the ICU surgeon will come and see you in a few minutes. So I was sitting there and all of a sudden the ICU surgeon comes in and he sits down. And I'm like, this is just, it's like one thing after another starts to spiral. And I'm like, here we go. And he's like, your husband's really sick. And I was like, okay. And he goes, we've never seen anything like this where we kind of don't know where the problem is to plug in anything other than like a really bad snake bite. Like we just don't know what is causing all of this. And I was like, okay, he's like, he does have acute pancreatitis, but we don't think that that's like that might have been the snowball of it, basically, but we just don't know where to plug the hole is basically what they were saying to me. And they were like, you probably should call people because we really don't think he's going to make it through the day. Like, we're going to try everything, but I just really feel like I need to warn you that he's not going to make it through the day. Now it's like 10 o'clock, I want to say 10:30. So I call my mom and I'm like, because she was rushing down there because my parents live here. His family lives in Pennsylvania. I had to make all those phone calls just to be like, you might want to get on a plane and get down here. I don't know what else to say. So then another surgeon comes in about 2 hours later. I want to say it was right before noon. And he said, I have a couple options for you. And neither of them they're not good options. And I was just like, okay. He was like, one, you can let your husband pass peacefully. Because the second option is we try to get him down to the OR. We don't know if he'll survive the trip to the OR. If he does survive the trip to the OR, we're going to have to open him up, basically take out what is not surviving in his body. Like I don't like to be like gross about it, but the abdominal what is in his abdominal cavity needs to be taken out. Things need to be like removed because if it's not, they're dying basically. And then he is going to be a double amputee. Like you're going to have to also probably remove his legs. And we, again, there's 80% chance he doesn't make it through this. Like that's pretty much a lot. And if he does make it through that surgery, all of that, he still has to stay in the hospital because he's going to have an open abdominal cavity for a year because they have to like let everything stay outside his body. And then he has to get reconstructive surgery with all of that. And I turned to this surgeon and I go, this is the worst and the most insane question I've ever been asked and probably will be ever asked in my entire life.
Yeah.
And he was, yeah. And I just remember sitting there going, and I looked at my mom and I was like, and the doctor did say to me, he said, I also want to let you know that yes, he's sedated and we want to hope he doesn't feel pain. But we can never tell anybody that like, we don't really know what they feel. And he's like, what he's experiencing, if he can feel it, is very painful. So I also want to let you know that. And I was like, okay. And I was just like, I know for a fact that even if he made it through all of that insanity,
wouldn't want to live like
he wouldn't want to raise his son that way. Yeah. I'm not saying like I wouldn't, and it always sounds, when I say it out loud, it's like, well, you just didn't want to do everything I was just like, I knew in my heart, I was like, he's not going to make it through this. And then it's like, I did all of that and put his body under more stress than just to be like, wrap my head around letting him go like peacefully. So I made that decision after calling his parents, because obviously being the wife it's the final decision comes down to me, but I wanted to be respectful. I mean, that is their son. You don't want to be like, well, I'm just making this decision. I want you guys to know the options, but I want you to understand why I'm ultimately going to make this decision. But I do feel like we need to have that conversation so you know what my thought process was and all of that.
Yeah.
And they agreed. I was just like, and I said, if you saw him right now, you would know. Because obviously when people start to approach death, I mean, he just didn't look like, it's not something I would have even wanted his parents to like see him.
Yeah.
Like it was I was just like, it's not, even if he comes back, he won't be the same person. Like, I just know that it's not going to be the same, but we're not even going to, I don't think, get to that point. So I went in and I did say to the doctors, I said, I don't mind you taking him off all the medication, but I don't want you taking him off the breathing tube while I'm in here. I know how that sounds. I don't want him to make it seem like he's struggling. Like, and I just know that that's what it would look like for me. So they were like, no, we understand. They're like, it could take a little longer though, in that sense, that like, if we do that. And I said, that's fine. And I was like, how long do you think they could, they were like either 30 minutes or 3 hours. Like, we don't know. So I was like, okay. And I prepared myself. I sat down next to him at the bedside and they removed all of the medication and all of that. And he died in 15 minutes. And my mom was like, if you didn't think you made the right decision, know that you made the right decision.
Right.
He wasn't making it down to the OR.
Right.
And I was like, no, I was like, he wasn't. And when I walked into that room, I was like, he's not here now. Like, I just, I was like, you can take all the medication off you want and have the time of death. But like, my husband he's not here. Like, I know that. And he died at 12:34, 12:34. And then they proceeded, I asked for his wedding ring and they had lost it. So I was waiting around for them to try out a wedding ring that they never found and all of that. And I always tell people, like, I think the craziest part of that whole day was getting in the elevator to leave and just being like, what? Mm-hmm. That all happened like, very quickly.
Like the night before you were watching Penn State Notre Dame.
Truly.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? I couldn't even, I remember looking at my mom and just being like, because when I first tried to make the decision, I looked at my mom, I said, I'm not going to survive this. And she was like, you're going to survive it. We're going to once I made the decision and all that happened, I just was like, I am so overwhelmed. And I've said this to other people, that I feel like my brain was trying to protect me for at least I would say the 10 hours after that, because I was just in more shock and like being like, wow, I don't even know. I came home and my dad was here with the house and I was like, I don't even know what day the trash comes. Like, I just started remembering stupid things that like Tyler did that I was like, I'm like, I can't even think about my husband passing now. First of all, I'm like overwhelmed with like
just everything.
All of life, like what life I have to deal with now that like he handled before I could even like think about like my husband is gone. It was just like, it was surreal in the sense of that.
How old was he?
He was 35.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. His birthday is April 9th. He was about to be, 36 in April.
So do you remember, because I often talk about walking through my front door after Travis, like I learned that Travis had been killed. Like, do you remember that moment?
Yes. My dad was standing at the front door and like, there were just no, because I was just like, it literally felt like I went through a tornado.
Yeah.
But like, there was calmness. I always say like, it felt like a tornado, but I kind of felt like, and I had this moment in the hospital when I was sitting next to his bedside when they were still trying to work on him before they had real answers. I would go in. I couldn't really sit there because they were doing so much and trying to work on him. So I would go in every once in a while. And I was listening to like nurses talk about what they were going to have for lunch. And I was just like, this is so, and it wasn't mean. Like, I don't mean meanly. Like, I was just like, the world is like happening. I kind of feel like I'm moving in slow-mo. Because like people are talking about like what they're having for lunch and my husband's like dying right here. Like, my world is
I can feel that so much. Like, I remember obviously different situation because I wasn't with Travis when he was killed, but like I remember being in my house and there was all these people there. And I remember like somebody talking about, oh, I got to get that done for work. And it was just like, they were just having common conversations about everyday things. And I was like, wait, how are you talking about this? Like, Travis is dead. Like,
and I really believe that's how people end up being like, how people's reactions is just to be like mute after. Like, I really would have moments where I realized I hadn't like opened my mouth to speak for hours. Yeah. Cause I was just like, what am I going to talk? What do I talk? I don't want to talk about him because it gets me way too upset. I don't want to like, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
I can't talk about weird work stuff that I have because I also had I've started my own company about when I was 6 months pregnant, and I don't get bereavement days. So I was just like, I don't know. Do I have to go back? How do I do this? Because like, do I have to go back? And I just remember there's so much I needed to say, but I also was just like, I don't want to, there's nothing I just want to be like in silence. And like, I can't even listen to what is going on around me right now.
What was the moment like for you when you, because again, like just talking about similarities from like the moment you first saw Colby again, your son? Like, what was that feeling when you first saw him after you walked back in the house?
So overwhelming.
Yeah.
So overwhelming. To the point where I had my friends, my very, very close friends, my dad was like, everybody's going to be here in like 5 hours. They had all gotten Airbnbs like around my area. Um, and I remember being like, it was almost hard to be around him, Colby.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
that sounds like it was like really tough for me to, I was just like, I don't know if it was like a reminder of it or if it was this overwhelming sense of like, this is all on me now. When he would cry, like for I would say like a week for 2 weeks afterwards, normal cry, not like because he really is a good baby, not really that fussy. But they would send so much panic anxiety into me to hear him cry. I don't know what it was, but that had only really started after Tyler passed. And I was just like, this is it's just from
Too much.
something tragic happening and being like, does he know what's going on? Like, there's so much going on in my head with that.
So I have, and again, I can't even imagine it being like my, the parent, like my child's parent. But, my daughter was 10 months old and Travis was her godfather. And like, it was a very tight bond. It was the first grandchild. It was like, and
Yeah.
she was his world. And when I got back, I remember when I walked in the door, it was that same thing. Like I felt like looking at my daughter was this reminder. Everything that was not going to be experienced was like looking in her eyes. I was like, she's never going to know him. She's never going to see him again. She's never going to understand the incredible person that he was. And like, I remember my girlfriend came and I still feel some guilt about this because I literally at one point turned to someone and I was like, I can't take care of her.
That was exactly what I said.
My girlfriend took my child and it was up until the day before his services, I did not see my daughter. And I don't even remember caring 1 ounce about her not being there. It was like, I couldn't have her there. It would have been too hard.
That was me. So my one very good friend that I've had since I was 12 turned to me and said, what's the number one priority right now for you? And I was like, I need someone to handle Colby.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I don't have the mental and emotional capacity to do it right now. And I don't want to be angry around him. I want him to feel as normal as possible. I know people are like, well, he's only 4 months old. They don't, will he really know? I was like, no, babies in general just pick up. I'm not saying he'll remember it, but I'm saying like the vibes of it, I just didn't want him to feel a certain way. So it was the same thing. I said, I don't think I changed a diaper that whole week when we were planning the funeral and dealing with all it. I didn't change a diaper. I don't think I fed him. Like I was like, everybody woke up with him in the morning to try and let me sleep. And I was just like, I feel you on that, on the guilt thing. Cause I think back and I'm like, wow, like I really just like in that moment was like, I can't even be a mom right now.
Yeah. I like abandoned my child. I was like, can't do it. Yeah. Truly. But that is the village that comes along when you deal with loss, right? And that to have those people that can help you and support you through that. And what was like, I think about like, what was that first time where, because I remember, and I would try to write stuff down because a lot of it, again, I think in the beginning, it's like so much shock. And it was very therapeutic for me to write the knock at the door and kind of like, all of a sudden, like things started coming back to me. And, on top of Brielle, on top of the fact that I gave my child away, I also slept in bed with my parents. I was a child. I would climb into my parents' bed every night and sleep in between them. I was a 27-year-old woman sleeping in between my parents.
This is the part that gets wild is that, so I had to have somebody sleep because my friends were here. I would say almost because I had the funeral right away. I didn't want to drag it out. I just was one of those things. And I had him cremated, so he wasn't going to be there. Like his body wasn't going to be ready. They also on top of that, if someone dies within 24 hours in a hospital, they have to do like a full blown like autopsy type of thing. I just had to fight that. There was just a lot going on with all that. So long story short, he wasn't there, but we had a funeral, a Catholic funeral that was like a memorial funeral or whatever. But most of my friends stayed for like 2 weeks. I want to say up to almost 2 weeks and had to sleep with me. I also moved onto his side of the bed because I was just like, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
Like it was a mental thing. I was like, I'm not looking at the empty side of his bed. Like I'll just sleep on this side of the bed. And like, it was a weird mental, like, I was like, we're gonna do whatever works. This is so weird, but it is what it is. And then we were actually getting renovations done in my living room. That was scheduled to happen even before Tyler had passed. And I moved in with my parents because I was like, they made a nursery in their house.
Yeah.
And they were like, I think it's best if you just come stay with us for like while this is happening. And it was like about a month. So that was almost the best thing to do because there was one night before the renovation that I stayed here by myself in my bed. It was like, I want to say 2.5 weeks after Tyler had passed. And I remember texting my dad being like, my anxiety is going through the roof right now. And it was at midnight. And I know it's because, of what had happened, like that I went to bed on what was a normal night. I woke up in the middle of the night to banging on my door. So the spiral starts like as soon as I start to get into bed. It's better now, but it's definitely still not like 100%.
Yeah.
But I just remember being like, there's no way I can stay in this house right now. And for like, it's going to be best for me to be like with my parents in a home where they're around. And I feel like, and I won't feel like, because I remember just being like, I can't have anybody else die. I need everybody to stay alive. Like that was what was going through my mind. Because I also, and I have said this before to someone, that about 2 weeks before Tyler passed, I woke up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. in a full blown like cold sweat, being like, because I had a very close friend of mine pass 5 years prior to this, Bree Payton. She was very well known in DC. She's my roommate. She's my brother's fiance. So I just remember being like, nothing bad has happened in a really long, in like years. So like, and he was still alive. And I remember being like, please, I just remembered like a silent prayer being like, please, like, I need everybody to just stay alive. Like, I don't know why I had that weird feeling. It is being like the rug hasn't been pulled out from under me in years. Like we've really been going. And then 2 weeks later, like I think about it all the time. I can actually remember waking up.
I have literally a very similar story. I remember it was probably a couple weeks before Travis died, and I was in my house, and my dog was up at the slider, and my daughter like crawled up to the slider. There was a rabbit outside our slider, and my dog was barking, and Maggie crawled up to the slider and was standing against it. And she was laughing because my dog was like going crazy over this rabbit. And I remember this like overwhelming sense of like, oh my God, this is just so, everything was like, felt perfect in that moment. And as soon as I felt that, I felt this wave of dread because I was like, everything's perfect. And it made me so nervous. And it was like, like you say, I can remember the exact moment. I remember that so much. And I talk about like when I feel in my life that things are like going so well, it's the scariest points in my life.
Anxiety's at the top, and everyone's like everything, and nothing is more like not, I want to say annoying. But people really are well intentioned. People are like, Brielle, like that's worst case scenario. Like that won't ever happen. That's not something that could happen. Like you're thinking, and I'm like, no, no. The worst case scenario did, but you're not understanding. I'm coming from a perspective of it did happen to me.
Yeah.
Like these things happen. My, Brie passed unexpectedly from getting H1. She had H1N1. She got on a plane. She passed within 2 days. I wake up and my husband, within 6 hours,
It happens.
I'm making funeral plans.
Yeah.
So it is one of you're right. It's like as soon as things start to go, like even certain days where I'm on, like today's I woke up, I feel good. And I'm like,
and it's scary.
By like 4:00, I feel like I'm going to be, never mind.
I wish I could tell you, for me, that feeling has not gone away. I still get that today. And I think that's just something that people that deal with trauma are just like, we're just hardwired now to just be on alert. We're like, don't tell me that's not going to happen because it did, right? Like the worst already happened and I'm never going to believe that the worst can't happen again. So that's just something that I think if you deal with a traumatic loss, like that's kind of what happened. I have a friend that last year lost her husband. He was around the same age as your husband to the flu. Very similar situation, like the night before, hanging out. Next day, he, goes over because he's like, I think this is pretty bad, goes to like urgent care. Long story short, he dies of the flu. And I'll never forget, like, the first time I saw her after he died, we were at her mother-in-law's house and she walked in and she just looked at me and she said, my husband died of the flu. And I was like, I know. And she's like what? Like he died of the flu, And it's like these simple things where you don't think that something can happen and it does.
It does.
Yeah.
And it does. Yeah. That was it. There's a lot of things that I start to realize that people really are well-intentioned in saying that I'm just like, my least favorite thing I've realized is when someone says to me, because ultimately my husband died, but I also became a single mom.
Yeah.
And I'm a first-time parent. So I have a child. There's already anxiety about being a first-time parent, even with a husband who, by the way, my husband was very hands-on from day one. I'll never forget it. I had tickets to Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour before Colby was born. And I was like, I don't have to go. And Tyler was like, no, go. I was like, because Colby was 6 weeks old. And I was like, and it was in New Orleans. So he was like, I can handle this, it's fine. And I'm not saying that like there are wonderful I'm not knocking other people, but he's a dad who just did with a 6-week-old who did 2 nights in 3 days completely by himself.
Yeah.
And like loved it. He was always hands-on about feeding him. So he did a lot on top of all that. And then, like I said, I looked at my dad and I'm like, he did so much around this house that I didn't know about because it was just, he just did that. Like I said, I'm like, Dad, what day does the trash come? I don't even and people think that's funny when I say it, but I'm like, no, like that's just one part of this that I'm talking about. Like we have a dog. I'm like, there's so much that I'm like, that I'm having to handle. And then also being like a mom.
A new mom.
At that point, 4-month-old, which crazy town just to deal with in itself. But and I have my own company, so I'm living on one income and things like I lost health insurance when Tyler passed because I was on his health insurance. We do have it now, so that's great. But when people say to me, "It'll all work out," what? Yeah. Obviously, it's going to work out, but how do you think it works? Do you think by osmosis it works out?
Right.
Like, I know what you're saying. Like, you're trying to be like, I know it's meant to be kind, but I'm like, what? Do you know how hard I have to work for it to work out?
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, flipping, it'll all work out. No, okay.
It's going to work out, but I got a lot to do in order for it to work out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I think once for better lack of a word, the dust settles, that's when everything kind of hits you and you're like, oh my gosh, this is everything that needs to be taken care of, that we need to do. And, you know, you talked about like simple routines, like getting out of bed, listening to audiobooks. They became like your anchor. Like, what is a good enough day look like for you now at this? Because I've had a lot of people on this show, you know, Mary Catherine Ham, who obviously we're mutual friends with, like a lot of people on the show, a lot of military widows, but nobody that is this short amount of time out from their loss. And so like, you know, I think a lot of the conversations we have are very reflective of like, oh yeah, remember 1 month out, 2 months, like you're in it. Like you are in first year. First year is a blur. I mean, and And so like, what does that look like for you now? Like where you're like, okay, I did what I had to do today.
Yeah. So I would say it starts with just, especially if the baby sleeps. I'm like, if I wake up and I don't feel like crushing anxiety, that I've slept. Yeah. We're already like up and going on that one. It's a morning routine going well. If I can, I always tell people with a baby, the times between 6 and 9 are just about survival, like getting to that first nap that I'm like, just get through this morning and get him to the nap and then I can start my day. I made a point to, from the day that Tyler had passed, to get up, take a shower, do my hair, put makeup on, and get ready. Because I was like, listen, and I think this is why I want to say like being able to talk to you 6 months out is that it really is because of Colby, because I was just like, I don't have this option to be like, we are going to sit in Tyler's sweatshirt and cry in bed with the stuff down all day. Or my kid doesn't eat, like he's in there by himself. I don't have somebody else to just, you know, come and handle it the whole entire time because mom couldn't figure it out. Now I have days where I'm just like, I'm just going to sit on this couch and like veg today while this, you know, while someone, you know, I do have some help, my parents help, the nannies like that. But that's the start of it, is being like, I'm getting up, I'm doing all of this. So I feel better, because I feel like if I don't get out of pajamas or I don't do this other stuff, everything starts to feel like it's kind of falling on top of me. Yeah. So to know I have forward progress in that. And then I work for most of the day. And the biggest thing that's helped me, honestly, is I go for a walk every single day with Colby, and I put an audiobook in because he loves to go on his little walk, put an audiobook in, and I just disassociate in a book for an hour and a half. I get home and feed him and then get him to bed. And at like, he's in bed by 7. And this is like my favorite part of the day. And this is how I know it's a really good day, when I can just like sit on my couch, veg out, watch Bravo or whatever TV show I can watch in silence for 2 seconds, and then be like, okay, that was like, I didn't have any breakdowns today. I do try to avoid things that are going to trigger something horrible. And I've talked about this before, is that, you know, being a single parent now, it's gotten better. I don't think it's 100% great. Is that I always think before I leave the house, like, I'm his only parent. There's no spare. Yeah. So like, I would have a really hard time leaving like my house to go very far, especially with him. Yeah. But like even solo, I'd be like, do I really need to go to this Target today? Like, do I really got to go down and do this today? Or can I just like have it brought to me? Because I don't know. I would just start to have like severe, like, I'm it. Yeah. I'm it. If anything happens to me, that's like an issue. Like so I would have a really hard time leaving the house. So I would say like even now because I have a nanny a few times a week to be able to work. But I purposely leave my home to do that because I'm like, if I don't start doing this, like I will become like, you know, Miss Havisham, where I'm just like, I'm not leaving anywhere. And Colby's going to stay in the living room where I can see him. So I don't have to worry about literally anything, because there's days where like the news is bad. Like heartbreaking thinking about the Texas floods. And I remember turning to my dad going, Colby's never going to camp. Yeah. Like And like, he's like, Brielle. And I was like, no, you're not understanding. Like, this is now, like, I can't even fathom something happening to him. And I also have to think about, I'm like, people have asked me, and I've thought about it, and it's such a morbid thing to talk about. It's like, what if it was Colby and not Tyler? Like, what?
I saw the comment that somebody had wrote on so you had, had obviously in your social media, and I love it. You kind of chose authenticity over like going back to just posting about books like nothing happened.
That would have been so weird to do for me, so I couldn't do it.
And I think you do a beautiful job of like combining like what you do on your social media platform with books, and also experiencing that through the eyes of, a woman that lost her husband. But somebody had commented about grieving as a single mom. You should be thankful you aren't grieving at, the loss of a child. And and you responded to it, and I'm so glad you did. And it's something that I have found through the grief process, and being around people that have, again, I'm around a lot of military survivors in my daily life, and there becomes this comparison where it's like, oh, you lost your husband, I lost my son. Oh, you just lost your brother. And I talk a lot with a lot of siblings, and I have a lot of close bonds with a lot of siblings who have lost their brothers in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we often talk about kind of like, sometimes we feel like we're like the forgotten survivors, because it's like, it wasn't your husband, it wasn't your son. And I'm like, well,
I get it.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, it was my best friend. And listen, there are people that lost siblings that weren't close with their siblings. There are people that lost sons that hadn't talked to their sons. And so I'm like, this idea that we play this game of like comparison on whose grief and whose loss is better or worse is such a fucked up game. I mean, it's crazy. So I'm so glad you and
I made this point in that video too, because I do think comparing the losses of human beings in our lives, I'll never understand it. But I do sometimes when someone's like, well, I'm basically a single mom because like I got a divorce, and I'm just like, so it's not the same. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, and let's say it's even like in a perfect situation that you divorced your husband, who is probably still a good dad. Your kids you still have help. Right. Like you still know in your brain, like, my husband's alive, like he can take the kids this weekend, or like I need like 2 seconds and like he can do this. So when people are like, I understand what you're going through, I got a divorce, and I'm just like, I'm not saying comparing losses as in death, okay? But I do think, I'm like, there is different losses that people have.
Oh,
like,
there's 100%.
It's not the same as my husband dying.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. But like, I also, on the 2-part of that video is what I said to you. I'm like, I completely understand that losing a child is heartbreaking, to the point where I have actually had to think about multiple times, what if it was Colby and it wasn't Tyler?
Right.
What's worse?
Right.
It's like, you don't have to think about things like that, because like your husband or someone didn't die. But guess who has to think about, like, well, how would I have reacted if Tyler, was here and we were dealing with the loss of our child?
Yeah.
Like, I am a fiery person, so it took like 10 hours. And her comment didn't even have like grammar sense. I was just like, whatever. But I'm also like, I'm tired of people are like, don't even respond. It was like, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm not upset. This isn't like I'm making an upset video. I do think there are people that need to know how to speak to people who have lost people. Yeah. Because it's clear that that's not happened to you yet, and you do need the tools to like how you talk to people. It's the same when someone tries to compare like their dog passing, and I'm like, I have a dog who I love.
Yeah, not the same. It's not the same.
She's not the father of my child.
I remember I got a card. I got a card from my friend's mom, and she was like, I'm so sorry for the loss, and it was very well meaning. And she said, she said my friend's name, before I had so-and-so, so we're talking 30 years prior, she's like, I suffered a miscarriage at 8 weeks. And I know what it's, and I ended up telling my,
feel bad. You're like, okay.
And I ended up showing the card months later to my friend, and she was mortified. And she was like, I'm mortified that she wrote that. And I was like, it's okay. I think in some ways people are trying to find that like way to connect with you.
The amount of trauma dumping that happened to me at Tyler's funeral in the receiving line that I was just like, I'm like, the best is my friends are like, you were not even, I didn't cry. I really didn't have a cry breakdown, not at his funeral, not at his wake, because I think you're just over.
Totally.
I think my brain's trying to protect myself. And I'm like, I just got to get through the moment.
Yeah.
So like, I don't have this time, the breakdown's coming in the shower when I'm by myself. But I was like, it's also hard to be sad, like crying sad in a receiving line when you have people coming up to you being like, I lost my, great aunt 2 weeks ago, and this happened to me, and I'm just like, but I'm like, you're like standing there, like, is this a therapy session line that I'm in? Like, I'm like, and then you don't even know how to respond to that. You're just like, I'm sorry, my husband's dead. Like today, we're dealing with this right now. But it was like, and I know, and you always have to think, I'm like, it's just them trying to find some connection to like feel relatable to you so that they're not just like,
well, because they don't know what to say too. Like, and I've had this conversation with Mary Catherine because we've talked about like, we've literally done the like, okay, top 10 stupidest things people ever said to you. But on some level, I also think about the people that said nothing. And there were people in my life that said nothing. And I would rather have the person trying, because grief is the most uncomfortable thing. And honestly, it is more uncomfortable to try and find a connection with the person grieving. Like us on our end. And, we're in it. We're taking it all in. But like and even me who's dealt with a lot of loss, I still know, like, I'm always like, people are like, what do you say? I'm like, if you can't find anything to say and you don't know what to say, all you have to say, I'm really sorry for your loss.
Yes.
I need you to know that. And that's it. And that's all you have to say.
Like when I'm like, this sucks. And they were like, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
This absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
And I agree with you because I don't want to say clocked people, but I can remember the people that didn't say anything.
Yeah. And I think, and I always say, I'm like, if you are trying to, being the person that's supporting the friend or the loved one, or even just the acquaintance, that person that is grieving, like, you are in way more of the uncomfortable situation in that moment. And I acknowledge that. But, not saying anything at all is worse than saying the stupidest thing.
Because you remember those people.
Yeah.
I remember the people who didn't say something more so than the dumb things almost people said.
Yeah.
And that, like, I'm just like,
yeah,
they tried.
Yeah.
They made it through here. Yeah. Like, but you really do walk away. Because my brother who lost Bree, her funeral in California was like 1,000-person receiving line. And my brother, before I had the receiving line for Tyler, said to me, be prepared.
Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? And he goes, people are going to say the weirdest things to you in this line. Mm-hmm. And you're just going to be like, what did I just experience now? And I was like, really? And he's like, Brielle, the stories that I heard, he's like, the first person that came up to me, it was like, and he was like, I have to do this 1,000 more times. And I was like, yeah, I don't. He's like, you just got to it's just all about getting through it.
Do you feel like a deeper connection with your brother? It's kind of wild. He lost his fiance. You lost your husband. Like,
yeah, I think that was the first time I really cried when that day. So my brother got on a plane that day, and my dad dropped him off at the house, and he just came in and he was sobbing because he was just like, I'm just so sorry. And I think it's just like in his brain, like, how is this happening to
Yeah.
like what? And I was just like, I don't know. And I keep saying to my dad, and my dad's like, you have to stop saying this. I said, I really feel like we're the lesson family.
Mm.
Like, I don't know how to, like, we're the lesson family. Learn from it. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just think about it. I'm like, Tyler didn't have life insurance. This is a big conversation. I said, we used to talk about life insurance all the time, all the time. It was on the to-do list, We'll do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. And he had a, measly little policy through work. And again, you don't like, you talk about weird things. You're just like, oh, it's finances. But it's like, right. But we actually have to talk about this because I have a kid and a mortgage and bills and things. And I just lost an income and health insurance again, like I said, on that day. And I remember sitting around right before the funeral with all my friends. I was like, if you guys do not get life insurance today, I'm not speaking to you. I said, if there's something that's going to come from this, because apparently we are the lesson family and I'm like the lesson girl, is you make your phone call right now. I said, you all have kids. I was like, and they're, it's always like, well, we don't need, probably never happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I think, like you said, going back to my brother, we're much closer because I feel like he also feels like, it was like we get it. Like, I don't even have, like, he was one of the best ones to be around because he just like didn't speak. Like, yeah. He was there, but like, just
didn't have to say anything. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this is horrible. Correct.
How do you hold on to this idea? Like, grief as a single mom, a young mom, a brand new mom, right? It's like joy and sorrow at the same time, which is just like, how do you hold on to both right now?
It's rough. I will say in the beginning, I just so he's turns 1 next week. And I have to really actively in my brain be like, you need to enjoy this moment.
What are you going to do?
Enjoy this moment.
Because my daughter turned 1 2 months after Travis died, and I'm not that mom. I mean, I don't have the big parties for my kids. I'm like, but
we're not doing that. But I think I don't feel as bad because like, I'm like, he's 1 and he won't really remember it. We're going to have cake with my family.
Okay.
Tyler's family's coming down this week to celebrate early. And then, so we're going to obviously acknowledge it. But I also think there's a 2-part thing for me that like, these types of things also rip open wounds again for me. Cause I'm just like, it's like any anniversary. I'm just like, when the 6 months of Tyler passing obviously happened. And I thought I was going to be fine. And I just realized, I'm like, whoa. He's been like dead for half the time we were married. Like, and you know what I mean? You're just like, I was like, by the next day, I was just like, man, that hit me a lot. I'm not saying like I had a break. I just was mentally like, it felt like I was back in my brain again where I couldn't speak. Yeah. Like I just didn't want to even, because you also, the anger stage is happening still now. And I'm like, I don't want to talk and be me. Like no one did anything to me.
Right.
Like, but I'm frustrated. Yeah. So I got to be really careful about like how I react to people because like it's an anger that like they didn't cause, but you're also in your brain, you're like, but you know what I'm going through. So I really just wish you would like,
I get it.
I don't like it. It's so hard to explain. So it's one of those things with like these types of things with the joy of like, my dad's biggest advice to me was like, don't wish your life away. Cause like when you're going through like the teething phase and this and that, you're like, oh, I just wish I wish you would just I can't wait for this. I can't wait to get through this. And my dad's like, you keep saying that. And then the next thing you know, like he's out of the house and on to college. And you're just kind of like lived in this miserable, like, I just want to get
trying to get to the next phase. Yeah.
Get through it.
That's great advice. That is great advice. And I'll tell you this. So I am very much like you, even 18 years out. And it's funny because now the years are different for me, but like I am very affected by anniversaries. So Travis's birthday, especially the day of his death. And this year, for some reason, and I don't know why it wasn't like a milestone date or like year or anything, but like 18 years was like super tough for me. And I actually remember I remember meeting people early on and they'd be like, oh, you know, my son or my brother or my husband passed away, like at like military conferences. They were like, oh yeah, it's been 8 years. And I'm like, oh, and I was like, that's terrible. Like I would never want to be 8 years out from my brother's death. Like I like sitting here in the 1 to 2 years. Like he's still kind of like, it hasn't been that long, you know? And so I remember being very fearful of that number ticking up. Yeah. And so I still, as much as I can try to say like, oh, this year's going to be different. I'm not going to be so affected by that anniversary date. And my dad always says, my dad is very different because people say to my dad, like, hey, I know like Travis's date's coming up. And my dad's like, it doesn't matter. Like April 29th is the same as April 27th, is the same as April 30th. Like it's just another day. My son's not here, you know? And so whenever I'm like in it, I'm like, I try to think back to, I'm like, you're right, Dad. Like it is. It's just another day, you know? So that's my advice when you're really in your feels as you're approaching that 1 year. You know, 1 year is the same as
I'm feeling it with his 1-year-old birthday because I'm more just like, you know, you know, I have friends who call me with kids who just turned 4 months being like, Brielle, I just want to call you and tell you, like, I am seriously confused onto how you handled Tyler because like my baby's now Colby's age and like I just don't think I could have done it. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, and I feel that way about his first birthday where I'm just like he turned 1 and Tyler's not here. And you're just like I want to celebrate it, but then I'm like celebrating it and I'm like thinking like there's a person missing here. Like I feel it. And I know like, you know, I'm not saying other people don't feel it that lost him, but I just feel like you know, he was, that's half time and me, like it just is like such a thing that I really, it's all, I live in my brain. I really feel like it's just like constant, like I'm talking to myself in my head all the time. And I'm really trying to be more conscious about being like, finding the, like being like, this is joyful. Like my son is not going to know. I make a point to say my son's not a grief touchstone for anybody. Like you're not to come. And I said, if you can't handle, you know, being around him without being upset or things like that, you need to find a way because what my son will know about Tyler will be what I tell him and it will be joy. It will not, my kid will not be this sorrowful grief. I know this is so bad to say, but I said to, you know, people, I said, we're not going to go. I have him in a really wonderful Abbey. I place Tyler in a columbarium. It's beautiful out there. It takes about an hour to get out there because I said, I am not going to be a gravestone mom. My kid who doesn't really remember his dad, obviously, isn't going to be dragged to a cemetery and be like, okay, let's talk this headstone now. Like and I know people, I understand people do that. People need it to feel comfort. I refuse to do it to him because I don't want to put a burden on my son that is an unnecessary burden. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like I just am like, it was the same way when I went through all of Tyler's clothes. I donated to everything within the first week of him passing. And a lot of that was my mom being like, you have to stop thinking of this as like, this is not his legacy, like pointing at his stuff. She's like, his son is. His son is. Like and I had stuff from Brie when she passed. I have like a box of her clothes. And I remember looking at my mom being like, I cannot be the person who carries around people's dead people's clothes anymore. Like we will keep what is meaningful of his, that like, you know, his Yankees jersey, like certain like Penn State stuff, like things that really matter. But his like work shirt that he wore on a Wednesday, like I don't need this hanging around. Like for me, I just can't do it. And also try and raise this kid. I can't have this what's going on around me. And I saved a little box of stuff. And I just remember looking at my mom going, because everyone's like, well, you want this for him when Colby might want this, Colby might want this. I was like, okay, everybody has to remember this again. Colby is not going to know, like, Colby does not remember who Tyler is. It'll be what I tell him of that. I'm not going to hand my son a box of his dead dad's clothes and be like, here's all your dead dad's clothes. And like do you know what that would put, like if someone did that to me at like, I don't know, what, say 18, earlier than that, high school, I'd be like,
what?
Okay.
I mean, you're like listen, I'm going to tell you where you are right now is way further than I was. I mean, it's way further than I am now. I still have all of my brother's clothes.
No,
I literally have them. No, and I know it is. I know it is insanely unhealthy in some ways to have them.
I don't even think. I do think it's circumstances for certain people are very different. I feel like if you had a child at 4 months and you were in a tiny, like, you know, tiny little condo home, you would be paralyzed.
Well, and I sometimes feel that way. I honestly feel that way. Sometimes I feel suffocated by his stuff, right? Because my mom passed 5 years after Travis, and I did do let's get like, who wants something? She has some beautiful St. John suits. Oh, the sister, right. What do you want? Like, I did that with her. With Travis, I just can't. I just can't. And it's not like I have I have a son named after him, but I'm not saving his stuff to pass to him. It's just like, it's like my only physical, like, I don't know. It's so messed up, but like, I think about it all the time. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
I think it was because when Brie passed, I went through her stuff with her mother asked me to help because she had an apartment in DC. And that's when I got and I feel like I got so many tools. I always say my grief toolbox from Brie's passing because of how old she was young. It was unexpected. It was just, I feel, and I didn't handle her death well. And that was the other thing. I was like, I remember turning around to my friends when Tyler passed being like, I can't do what I did when Brie died. Like, I can't like, I can't do it. I have a child, I can't sit here with a bottle of wine every night and like drown this away.
Yeah.
Like,
different place now.
I'm in a different place now. And I remember being like, I cannot, his boxers, there's certain things that I was just like, this is ridiculous. I really can't, and I kept thinking in my head, like, we're making room for my son's stuff. We're making like things that he would like. Tyler would have been like, what do you do? Like, I thought that was how I went through this too. Tyler would have been like, what are you doing saving that polo shirt? Yeah. Like, come on, yeah. Donate it. What are you doing? Like, what are we doing here? And I was just like, my mom's like, he's the legacy. And you're right in the sense of like, I'm going to be like, here's a box of his stuff. Like, yeah, if he wants something or we talk about it and we bring it up, but I refuse to burden him with grief and sorrow. You want him to be joyful for as long as they can be joyful. You want them to live in this bubble.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, he's going to be a kid who lost his dad and he's not going to remember him. And so he's going to have to deal with that
that's its own set. I feel like its own set of things.
So don't make it more heavy than it needs to be.
You don't want to say this for Colby. I literally have one little box of like truly the stuff that Tyler loved of that. I was just like, and he'll have the option if he doesn't want it. That's okay too. I completely understand. It will be here if you want it, but don't feel like to make me feel better, you got to walk out with your dad's jersey and you're just kind of like, I guess I got to do, I don't know. She gave it to me. And now I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I guess. And then people, so it will, how he responds to this will come down to how I message it. And I refuse to let people burden him and other people around me. I mean, it was a boundary that I've set, and just, this is not going to be like, oh, you look just like your dad. And I know this sounds like this and that. It's like, we're not talking about it that way.
Yeah.
I refuse to let this child feel what I feel now too early is the best way to say it.
I mean, I don't like to give grades to people on how they're grieving, but I don't know. You're like I'm still I've not made the honor roll in any
Oh,
way. Like
you're
you just
18 years. I have days, Ryan, where I'm just like, I'm a miserable person to be around.
yeah.
There are days
Yeah.
where and I have to actually think to myself, I'm like, today's not a people day. I got invited to like one of my friends' like birthday parties, like for their child. And I turned to my mom and I said, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? I was like, I know how this is going to go. Like, I still walk into rooms being the young girl who's, because, you know, I'm in a little smaller community in Mount Pleasant in this area of like Charleston. People know, everybody knows, most people
You're
know.
the woman who lost her husband and you have the young kid.
Yeah, and I'm just like, here we go. It's like, and it becomes one of those things. Like, do we acknowledge it? They don't know how to acknowledge it. They don't acknowledge it. Now we're not talking about it, and I'm aggravated because you didn't bring it up, but I didn't really want you to bring it up. Yeah. So I'm like, this is where we would go on this birthday party. So like, today is just not the day. And for like 3 months, we have a coffee shop we used to go to all the time, and I said to my dad, I was like, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
Because I just can't keep having this conversation. Like you can go and have the conversation. You can help deal with all of that for me. I said, but it's especially like the first month, and this is going a little off topic, but Tyler had a person who did his hair, he got a haircut from a girl barber, and I'm the only one who knew about the girl barber. He was because like Tyler like never met a stranger, so he like talked to everybody. So he like obviously had like this barber's like number, and they would talk about the kids they were sending to school and like things like that. And like he would text her to get in early. Like if he would be like, oh, I gotta get my hair cut like now, my wife's like gonna murder me if it gets any longer over my ears. And I knew who she was, and I know where the thing is. And I remember thinking about, it was like 2 months afterwards, I was working from home next to the barbershop where the girl works. And I was like, wow, she doesn't know.
Oh, wow.
This is like 2 months after. And I was like, man, she wouldn't know because there's no one else that would tell her. And she just thinks that like, he's not either not responding to her text messages or like dropped off, like stopped going, or I don't know.
Found someone else. Yeah, found another barber.
That day, and I was getting in my car, and I go, something came over me. I was like, I gotta go in there and tell her. And I was like, man, what a weird position to be in. That like I'm 2 months out, so I'm not like hysterically crying. I'm able to get through the day. We're dealing, you know, like my grief. Like Tyler died for me already, but I was like, I'm about to like really put a wrench in someone's day right now. And I walk in, and I'm like, can I talk to Kayla? And Kayla comes over, and she's like, I was like, well, I got to tell you something. I said, I don't know if you want me to tell you now or you want me to tell you later. And she's like, no, just tell me now. I said, Tyler passed. And she dropped everything in her hands. Wow. And I was like, she's like, what? And I was like, in January, I said, but I completely forgot. Like, there was no way you would have known about it. And like, I turned his phone off a couple weeks after, because I was just like, when I need it to open it for certain things, I'll do that, but I don't feel like it's just, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah,
I have everything I need right now. And I was like, I just felt like I would want to know if like someone just random, I said, I know you guys talked, and I know like, and she was like, Brielle, I was going to text him this morning because I was like, he hasn't been in here for like 2 months. And I did that, and then I had to do the same thing with the person who did our rings. I went in to get my rings cleaned, and he was a very close friend of ours. Someone he would also not really have known, and he was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey, I was like, 11 o'clock." I was like, So like to have to also tell people months later that don't know that we're like friendly with him, like decently friendly with him, is a wild thing to watch.
Yeah,
you're like watching people's like great. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, this is like day one for you. This is day one for you. And
you broke the news. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I have days though. Days for sure. Like I said, I can't go to that party today. There's going to be no people interactions because I will have no friends by the end of today if I go out.
Well, I can tell you that I very much appreciate like just your openness and your willingness to like share it. And just, again, seeing where you are right now in your grief journey, and it'll be a journey for the rest of your life, no matter where your life takes you. You've always lost Tyler, you know, and that is going to affect like what your life looks like going forward, obviously. And, you know, I started to like really dial into this idea of resilience and what that meant, because I honestly probably couldn't even have given you a definition of that word prior to Travis's death. Like, it's not even a word that entered my mindset at all. And I've obviously like dove into it in a big way, and all the different spokes around it and what that means. And I think like, have you thought about like the idea of resilience, not like as a buzzword, but like as a practice, like how that shows up for you in your life today, 6 months out?
Yeah, I think it comes down to being like a mom to Colby. I really like the purpose that I have every day with him is like how I'm able to be resilient. I really feel like he's the reason. I've told this to people. I said, he's the reason I'm going to survive this. Yeah. He's 100% the reason I'm going to survive this. Because if I didn't have a child, I couldn't tell you that I'd be sitting here like this in front of you now with everything. I don't know what I would be like. And I always knew in the back of my mind, I mean, my son is probably the definition of it for me right now, because I just always have the thing in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm not rich enough to have a mental breakdown, and I have a son that I have to deal with. My dad's always said, like, you're not rich enough to completely have a mental breakdown. Like, you can't go away for a week. Okay. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sounds good. He was like, because, you know, one, you're not rich enough, and two, you do have a kid you have to take care of. And I've always my parents are very hands-on and help me so much. And I obviously have help, but I'm the mom. They're grandparents. Yeah. Like, they should be enjoying life as the grandparents. So when I tell you my dad is over here every night putting him to bed, because they have their own little nighttime schedule, just so that I can like have an hour to reset the whole house. You know how it goes. I reset the whole house for the newborn, get everything ready for the next day. So he still does much more than what any grandparent should be doing. But I am beyond grateful for them. But it's given me, he is, knowing that that's happening, I make a conscious effort to be like, I still have to be the mom. Like, I can't just rely on them to help, because they'll do it. But what does that do for my son? Yeah. At the end of the day, like, he deserves just grandparents too. And he deserves like a mom who is around and there and creating joy and enjoying moments, and not just sitting there like, oh, Tyler's not here today type of attitude. So I would say if I had to make honest the definition, my son's name would be next to it at the end of the day.
I love that. Brielle, thank you so much. This has been awesome
to
talk to you. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate, I think, you know, for our listeners, them getting to hear from someone that is so new to their loss, I think is going to be incredibly valuable. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you. And I love this conversation. I always say, I feel like I just went through a therapy session. I feel better.
Awesome. Good. It's going to be a good day. Yeah,
we're on the up today.
There you go.